It was great. Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here. This is a great song, too, by Jason Derulo.
It is.
Jason
He's
Derulo.
great, very talented.
Do some shopping.
Well, listen, on this Monday morning after the big Thanksgiving, everybody's talking about what's going on at our southern border in just to the south of San Diego. And we start with the Fox News alert because hundreds of people, many from that migrant caravan, have stormed the U.S. border yesterday.
Border Patrol agents forced now to fire tear gas into the crowd that was uncontrollable.
Our own Griff Jenkins live in Washington with the Trump administration's response. Griff, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, guys. You know, there's more than 5,000 migrants camped across that border, but hundreds of them rushed the port of entry yesterday, giving the administration its first real test of its policy towards the caravan. It began peacefully, but devolved into chaos when migrants became violent, throwing rocks at Border Patrol, forcing them to fire tear gas into Tijuana, forcing them to temporarily close the port of entry at San Ysidro, as Mexican officials arrested dozens charging that border. The deputy commissioner of the Customs and Border Protection, Robert Perez, told Fox and Friends that this caravan is unlike any he's ever seen.
This caravan and this phenomenon and how it's manifested itself is absolutely unique to anything that we had seen in the past. And the violence that has been perpetuated across two international borders and throughout the country of Mexico is something that we have taken particular note of and that we are absolutely prepared to deal with if it were to occur.
And guys, caught in the middle of all this, Tijuana's mayor says this is a crisis. He doesn't have the resources to deal with it. Meanwhile, Mexican officials are vowing to deport all of those they arrested yesterday. We were one of the first to report that this was coming, and we'll be one of the first today, guys, to tell you it's far from over as the officials there try and figure out what to do.
That's right.
Yeah, Griff, yesterday on the program, you were the first to report that indeed that portions of this caravan would be heading to that port of entry. What are you hearing about today or the days that follow?
I'm hearing the situation is one that they really haven't had to deal with since this caravan arrived. I'm hearing there are a lot more coming, and I am headed out very shortly here to try and get out there myself to give you an inside look of what's happening. The situation, to put it bluntly, is quite fluid, guys.
Yeah, they had to stop traffic yesterday, Griff, at the big border, the San Ysidro border. They closed traffic on foot and by car. They had to do that for 4 hours. They closed the foot traffic, and for 5.5 hours, they had to close the vehicles.
That's right. Nothing north and nothing south,
right.
Because at the end of the day, once people get across, we still have a policy that tells them, because of a judge's ruling, that they can claim asylum. And it is this catch and release policy that you're going to talk a lot about today is at the center of it all. We are not aware of any of these migrants that actually got across the border, but we'll get details perhaps later from CBP officials.
All right. Griff Jenkins joining us live from the D.C. Bureau. Travel safely. We'll see you in California. So it all started yesterday morning at 11:20 when apparently the migrants started clashing with Mexican police. You can see right there on the Mexican side, they rushed a concrete canal near the pedestrian bridge, and then 50 people ran past the police, broke through a hole in the border fence, and then some of the people in the group threw rocks at agents on the other side. And apparently a number of the Border Patrol agents were hit by rocks, and that's when they started shooting the tear gas to try to disperse the crowd. Don't know if it was to disperse the crowd or a reaction to them being hit by the agents being hit by rocks. Nonetheless, that's what everybody's talking about this morning, that they fired tear gas.
Yeah, and it's not the first time. We'll talk a little bit about the fact that tear gas has been employed before. But if we saw in those images when Griff was talking, there were young men hurling rocks at Border Patrol agents. Not acceptable. So if you're going to attempt to do that while coming into our country, then you're going to get tear gas in your face. And that's part of the way the world works.
Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristen Nielsen, she released a statement. She said DHS, Department of Homeland Security, will not tolerate this type of lawlessness and will not hesitate to shut down ports of entry for security and public safety reasons. We will also seek to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law anyone who destroys federal property, endangers our frontline operators, or violates our nation's sovereignty.
Now, this is nothing new because on the San Diego newspaper, back in November of 2013, the San Diego Union Tribune, they ran a story that sounds eerily familiar. Apparently, a group of 100 people tried to illegally cross the border. They threw rocks and bottles at Border Patrol agents, and the agents responded, and this is an image from the Border Patrol back in 2013. The agents responded by spraying pepper spray and other means to force the crowd back into Mexico. So that happened during the Obama administration back in 2015.
I remember seeing those images. I think there's a video of it too as well. I mean, if you're on this side of the border defending your country and the wall or whatever barrier exists there, you're going to use what is necessary, non-lethal force, to prevent that. Trump is serious about this, and we're even seeing that Mexico's feeling the heat. I mean, I hope what Griff reported is correct, that they actually will attempt to deport, as reported, a lot of the migrants that attempted to illegally cross into our country. That's what we're being told. That would be a result of pressure from our country, just like they're possibly holding asylum seekers on that side of the border. Listen, migrants, at this point, they're flagrant lawbreakers. They say they're here to break the law. They say they want to claim asylum. It's not clear what their intentions really are. And if no one got in, then mission success.
President ran on this issue. He's tough on this. He said earlier this month, we're not going to put up with this. They want to throw rocks at our military. Our military will fight back.
Well, I was listening to the radio on the way in this morning, and they were talking to some of the people who did do the rushing, some of the migrants, and they said, look, we're just frustrated. We've been sitting in Tijuana for a couple of weeks, and we're ready to go. Don't know why yesterday was a day, but you got to figure that they're looking, and they are frustrated. They would like to enter the country, the United States. They would like to apply for asylum. They would like to be accepted. But those are daunting odds when you think, I'm going to just run through that little hole in the wall over there and get past all those guys with guns. I mean, that's the level of frustration.
No, it's true. But you know who else is frustrated? American citizens who feel like their border's been wide open for 2 decades. And this is one flashpoint that we're seeing, and a president finally taking it serious. But there's another 2,000 miles of our border without walls, without this focus and attention, where thousands of people are literally running across the border, and we have no idea who they are. Well, that's the conversation that needs to be had, and that's why this flashpoint is so important. It says, if you're going to use a political movement to prove a point, we're going to stop you.
Well, you have thousands of people down there on the border, and some of the images are women and children. Most of them are men, according to Kristen Nielsen. But when you look at these images, yes, you have a heart for them, but you cannot deny that they're there. And the media, if you remember, they have said this caravan, it wasn't coming, or it's not as big as everyone's saying it is, and it's not a threat. Listen.
They've been running on an imaginary caravan.
The caravan was a complete ruse. It was a joke. It was about fear and loathing.
Programming on the caravan was propaganda.
It's a lie that this caravan is a problem of that magnitude.
I, as a national security official, would want to focus on the actual threats and not these invented threats of caravans that are 1,000 miles away.
The solution to the caravan invasion all along, it wasn't the troops, it wasn't walls, it was apparently just getting past the midterm elections.
Invented threat.
I think that was Ben Rhodes, right? The man that gave us the Iran deal. Yeah, so I'd like to hear more from him about invented threats.
Well, you know, the people to the south of our border port are frustrated, but so are the American people. Yes. You know, how many times have we heard, oh, Congress has got to work together and get something done? Congress has just got to fix it. I mean, this is a big, fat mess. The president has been very clear about what he wanted, the 4 pillars of his plan, but he hasn't really been able to get off the mark with the Congress.
I wonder, Steve, if the images like this will start to force Congress's hand. You can't. This is an untenable situation in the long term. It's an important stand down right now, but you might say, okay, let's all back away a little bit, give a little bit, get a little bit to get a solution down.
Well, they can't ignore it. It's not an invented threat. It's actually, people are down there, thousands of people at the border, and it's a serious situation. I think everyone agrees we need immigration reform. How we get there? Everyone disagrees on that.
Yeah, especially the wall.
Let us know. You could email us, friends@foxnews.com. We're also on Facebook, as is Jillian Milley, who joins us with the headline.
Hey, that is right. Good Monday morning. Hope you had a good weekend. Let's get you caught up on some news, starting with this. An American soldier killed in combat, just identified as Sergeant Leandro Jasso. The Army Ranger lost his life in a shootout with al-Qaeda terrorists in Afghanistan on Saturday. The Washington State native was on his 3rd deployment since enlisting in 2012. Officials describe Jasso as a humble professional who will be deeply missed. He's the 2nd American troop killed in Afghanistan this month. Winter weather causing chaos for millions of travelers trying to get home from their Thanksgiving holiday. Snow blanketing major roads in the Midwest, causing whiteout conditions from Kansas City to Chicago. More than 1,000 flights canceled on Sunday, hundreds more already grounded today. That system now moving east into Indiana and Michigan. President Trump is heading back on the campaign trail today. He's holding 2 Make America Great Again rallies in Mississippi, one day before the state's Senate runoff election. He's stumping for Republican incumbent Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. Neither Hyde-Smith nor her Democratic opponent, Mike Espy, secured 50% of the votes during the midterms. In just hours, NASA will be attempting to land its InSight spacecraft on Mars. The agency bracing for 7 minutes of terror, starting from the moment it touches the red planet's atmosphere. From that point, everything must be precise and go perfectly in order to stick the difficult landing. If successful, the InSight probe will be able to give us more insight on the interior of Mars. Pretty fascinating.
It is fascinating. I heard a story. Apparently, when they pop the chute, the thing is going like 15,000 miles per hour, but by the time it actually touches down with all the chutes and the retro rockets and everything, it should be going 5 miles an hour.
Wow.
Oh, really?
But does it make that noise?
Just like that. All right, thanks.
Hollywood it does.
Thanks, Julia.
All right, coming up on this Monday, Senator Kamala Harris could run for president. Ron Colburn is the former National Deputy Chief of the U.S. Border Patrol. He joins us right now from Phoenix. Ron, when you look at those images, what do you think?
Well, certainly this particular group, the Caravan, which has been well organized and supported from outside sources, has a core of violence to it that basically communicates a sense of entitlement. These are persons that one would like to think are true refugees, but they're not showing that in their actions.
When you look at the story, where apparently hundreds of them just decided, you know, we're frustrated, let's make a run at the border. There was a small hole they were able to puncture through the border wall, and they hurled all sorts of rocks, etc., at the Border Patrol agents, and then they fired the tear gas. Is that warranted?
Absolutely. And to clarify, the type of deterrent being used is OC pepper spray. It's literally water, pepper, with a small amount of alcohol for evaporation purposes. It's natural. You could actually put it on your nachos and eat it. So it's a good way of deterring people without long-term harm.
What do you make of the fact that now Mexico, while there was a story that was floating around over the weekend that said that Mexico would agree to keep people who were seeking asylum in Mexico, they now say that apparently that is not a done deal, no deal there. But nonetheless, it looks like they're trying to review videotape and figure out who some of these people were who stormed the border, and they're going to deport them back to their country of origin.
Yes, Mexican citizens have just as much an expectation of their government of protection as those in the United States. This particular caravan, especially the one arrived in Tijuana along our 2,000-mile border, has been unusually violent. So Mexican nationals also have a right to protection. So the threat by the mayor and the chief of police at Tijuana to deport foreign nationals from Central America, South America, the Caribbean, Eastern Hemisphere is righteous.
You know, starting last week when the president and the Department of Homeland Security, along with our nation's armed forces, reinforced the southern border down there, there have been stories circulating, rumors that some of the migrants were going to try to race across through the vehicle lanes. And in fact, those rumors are still alive this morning. But clearly, after what happened this weekend, the Border Patrol is ready for anything.
Yes, lessons learned going all the way back until the early 1990s. We saw masses of persons crossing into the United States right through the vehicle lanes at ports of entry. San Isidro was particularly victimized by this. It makes the traveling public from Mexico and the United States, as well as the inspectors at the ports of entry, vulnerable to violence. Indeed. So they have reinforced the border well.
All right, let's see what happens. Ronald Colburn, we thank you very much for joining us today from Phoenix.
My pleasure.
All right. What do you think about that? Email us friends@foxnews.com. Meanwhile, one Democrat says they must pick a progressive to take on President Trump in 2020, but will that hurt Democrats? A fiery debate between two Democrats is coming up next. Plus, how did this car end up stuck on the train tracks? We tell you here what the driver told the cops.
2020 that moderates will lose and Democrats will put forward a progressive to take on President Trump. The senator is Brian Schatz of Hawaii. He tweeted this: He said, a few thoughts on 2020 since all of my friends appear to be running, which is good. First, no one should be trying to figure this all out before the voting starts. Second, we must reject the premise that this is a fight between moderates and progressives. We are going to nominate a progressive, he says. But is this the best strategy? Here to debate, former Democratic member of the Ohio State Senate, Capri Cafaro, and progressive commentator and co-founder of Run for America, David Bernstein. Thank you both for being here this morning.
Absolutely. Good morning.
I'll put my cards on the table. Feels like a bit of a catch-22 here. The energy amongst the base seems to be with progressives, whether it's socialism, open borders, abolishing ICE, universal basic income, Medicare for all. But those feel like messages that are tough to sell in a lot of the states you might need to win, like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. So, David, as a progressive yourself, do you feel like this advice, nominating a progressive, is a recipe for winning in 2020?
I really think it is, because I think as we look at it, 2020 is going to be very much a base election. It's going to be really important to turn out the base voters who helped deliver the majority for Democrats just a couple weeks ago. And Democrats would be well served to actually put up someone who can go toe-to-toe with Trump and actually turn out their base to do it. You know, the chance that moderate Democrats are going to vote for President Trump is about zero. The chance that independents who have already made up their mind are going to change their mind at this point puts Democrats in a strong position to actually nominate someone who can speak boldly to their message and not someone who's wishy-washy in the middle.
Capri, answer that, because it does feel like the energy of the base is with the far left of the Democrat Party. Where is the space for a moderate to gain traction?
Look, I mean, the fact that, like, wishy-washy, I don't know about that. But look, I mean, there's no way that a progressive is going to win in 2020 because, Pete, for exactly what you said, the 2020 census basically is going to drive the 2022 district maps, okay? Why is that important? Because still in 2020, we're dealing with the exact same electoral college map. And, like, even though progressives did pick up seats in places like Arizona, Nevada, et cetera, the map right now is still necessary to win places like Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. So and like, believe it or not, when you say, like, I think my colleague there said that moderates are not going to vote for Trump. Moderates elected Donald Trump because they felt they didn't have a choice, okay? So in order to beat Donald Trump, we need to get the moderates back.
Well, David,
and
that's a good point. I mean,
important.
you've got union members and others in those former Rust Belt states that crossed over, your states, flyover states, that crossed over to vote for President Trump, even though they'd had a lifelong affiliation with the Democrat Party. They don't relate to the far-left views of the elites on the coast. Is that not a problem for you?
Well, look, I think there are two things to consider. Number one, any Democrat, I think we all know, who's going to run is going to be painted as a far-left progressive, no matter if they actually are or not. So I think that Democrats should be less worried about that. And number two, I think we've seen in a lot of data and a lot of polls, you know, people have soured on President Trump. Those kind of voters, while his support among Republican primary voters is very high, some of those voters have actually soured on President Trump. And it's because they feel he hasn't delivered on the promises, which actually align much more on a progressive side.
Hold on, Capri, I'm going to let you respond to that, because you are from some of those states that elected President Trump. He's delivered on wanting border enforcement, even though Congress hasn't delivered on the wall. He's clearly serious about it. Jobs in the economy have returned to places where we were told they would never come back. So it's and minority communities and others who he said, take a bet on me, have seen their unemployment rate drop to historic lows. So does he not have a great case to make in a lot of places that elected him to give him 4 more years?
I mean, you can spin those numbers any way you want. I mean, we still have issues in regards to wage gaps, for example, and in places like my home community in Trumbull County, Ohio, where 1,500 jobs have been lost at General Motors Lordstown. So, you know, the progress of the economy isn't felt necessarily everywhere, particularly because some of the trade issues have backfired. You look at Harley, for example, you know, in Wisconsin, that is talking about moving their operations over to Europe because they are concerned about EU retaliatory tariffs. So it's not necessarily all rosy for President Trump, and that is why a moderate from the Midwest could actually make some ground.
Yeah, well, email us. What do you guys think, our viewers, friends at FoxNews.com? Fox.com. I will put my vote in there. David, I think the energy is on your side, even if there's a lot of logic to Capri's argument. Thank you both for being here this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, moments ago, President Trump reacts to hundreds of migrants storming the border. Dan Bongino says the invasion is real. He's up next. Plus, look who's hanging out with Janice Dean. Sadie Rack. We're going to bring in Dan Bongino, former NYPD officer, former Secret Service agent, and author of Spygate, the attempt to sabotage Donald J. Trump. Do it by plane, do it by bus, but they're not staying here. Dan, your reaction.
Well, Pete, listen, the chaos isn't a brand you want to run on. And the Democrats have shown no substantive policy proposals to stop this chaos on the border at all. Donald Trump right now seems to be the only prominent Republican out there really speaking out forcefully on this issue. Listen, guys, we were told a couple of things, right? That there was no caravan by the liberal media and the Democrats. That's clearly not true. And we were told, secondly, that this was not an invasion, which as of yesterday, granted, I don't mean to be hyperbolic about it, but clearly what happened yesterday were people trying to invade our border. I mean, it goes back. What do you believe? Your lion eyes or the liberal media? I mean, it happened yesterday.
Some of the Democrats were on the Sunday shows over the weekend. Congresswoman Maxine Waters called the border crisis a political ploy on behalf of the president, says he wants to stoke fear, painting migrants out to be dangerous and unfortunate. And then Senator Amy Klobuchar, she was on one of the shows, and she is blaming Republicans for all this. Listen, and the president.
My mom taught second grade until she was 70 years old, and she always told me, if you do something wrong, you don't tell the truth, you take responsibility for it. You don't blame it on the other kid. He controls the White House. His party controls the House and the Senate, and it is on them. He has gut-punched us on that a number of times. We have the will to put the money at the border for better security and combine it with some sensible reforms. He has chosen instead to weaponize this, to politicize it. And I just think it's wrong for our economy, and it is also wrong for our work with the rest of the world.
Dan, your reaction?
No, I don't accept that. And you shouldn't either.
Thank you.
You know, I wake up every morning like, thank God I'm a conservative because I don't have to lie to people like you just, that's lie. Listen, and I don't want the focus group tested crap either. Oh, they're not lying. She's just lying. She made that up. Donald Trump offered them a deal on DACA. He offered them a deal. You give us the wall, right. We'll give you your DACA, which I didn't even agree with, by the way. But Amy Klobuchar going on a national television program and claiming that deal never happened and that Republicans have no solutions on immigration laws. And do you understand, guys, that's a lie? Amy Klobuchar just made that up. And if you believe it, you're a fool. That did not happen. You can just go to this thing on your phone called the interweb and look it up yourself. It happened. Donald Trump offered them a deal. The Democrats don't want it. This is garbage. Well, how can you be a liberal and lie to people like that on TV?
Well, that's what
she get away with it. It's a shame.
She traffics in that. She pretends to be Mrs. Nice from Minnesota. She has the highest turnover rate of her staff. They do duplicity as a job description. She plays a moderate, but is an absolute voting leftist in the U.S. Senate. It's the way they all operate, Dan.
Duplicity. That's the best word. Because Amy Klobuchar is not ignorant. She's a bright woman. Yes. And I wish she was. If she was dumb, you could say, oh, don't worry. She just doesn't know. She does know better. She's very smart. She knows what she said on immigration is an absolute lie. Trump offered them a deal. The Democrat, not only that, Pete, he offered them a deal on the DACA side better than the one they would have gotten under a Democrat administration. And the Democrats still said no because they don't want Donald Trump to have a win policy-wise on immigration on anything because they are obsessed with taking this president down. It is disgusting. This is what you voted for in the House and the Senate if you voted Democrat, by the way.
Dan, as we look at these images from yesterday around the noon hour out on our West Coast, you can see the migrants are throwing things. A number of Border Patrol agents were hit by rocks. They were able to, about 50 of them were able to squeeze through a hole in the border wall. And then to disperse the crowd, Border Patrol, as you can see right there, used pepper spray. Tell us what pepper spray is like.
Well, you have two different types of these non-lethal chemical devices. You have lacrimators, which make you cry, they make you tear, and you have pepper, which basically burns. But it's temporary, thankfully. Listen, it's not preferable. I'm not suggesting it's a pleasant experience, but it doesn't do any damage. And the minute you put water in your eyes, it's over within a few minutes. But again, it's an unpleasant experience. But Steve, I ask people who have a problem with this, well, what do you want our brave men and women defending our border to do if they're having rocks thrown at them and you have a bunch of people storming the border? What's your option? What do you want them to do? Use foul language? I mean, there's nothing. They have to defend themselves. These are brave men and women defending our border. This is not a pleasant situation. I'm not suggesting that there are good options. I'm suggesting to you there are only less bad options.
Right.
And this was the less bad option here.
And Dan, we see these images, and on the front of every paper, it shows a woman and her two children who got some of the pepper spray. We don't want women and children or anybody to wind up getting pepper sprayed.
No, of course not. But Steve, the only way to stop that is to not storm the border and enter legally in a port of entry.
If you don't want a speeding ticket, don't speed.
Nobody wants this. No sane person wants it. Nobody. But you have to look at the choice spectrum. Who made the choice here that caused this? It wasn't us. We didn't cross into the Mexican border and start using lacrimators and pepper spray. We did not do this. You decided to storm a border. It's not pleasant. It's not nice. It's not cute. And it's nothing to joke about. But what is your option? How do you defend our border? Cheap talk? What are you going to do? Well, I'm serious. To anyone out there, what are you going to do? What do you think? The border is a suggestion? Then what's the point of having a sovereign
Dan. The
country?
left thinks the border is a suggestion.
Well,
their answer is let them in.
What's the point then, Steve? Pete, what's the point then? Why have a sovereign nation? Just screw the whole thing. Scrap the northern border, the southern border, ports of entry, and everybody just come in when you want.
Something's got to be done.
Just take what you want when you want.
No doubt about it. Immigration reform, border security has got to be addressed. Let's hope the new Congress does it, because the last one didn't do anything about it. Dan, thank you very much for joining us today from Palm City down in Florida.
Got it, guys.
All right.
Got it.
All right, Jillian has some headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning. And we're following a developing story right now. So let's get you caught up on this. A community is mourning the death of a Utah police officer and Marine veteran killed in the line of duty. Police say Officer David Romrell was purposely hit by a car by burglary suspects. His mentor and friend remembers him as someone who would do anything for anyone.
He came home, followed his dream, and then died for his community.
An honor guard will watch over his body until his funeral. Officer Romrell was sworn in to the force in January. He is survived by his wife and 4-month-old baby. Potential reshuffling in the Senate Judiciary Committee could force star Democrat Kamala Harris to forfeit her seat. According to the Washington Post, Republican leaders may downsize the panel, and Harris, as the most junior member, could be the first to go. Her name has been floated as a 2020 potential candidate for president. Okay, have you ever had your GPS route you the wrong way?
Maybe it's a shortcut, Dwight. It said go to the right.
It can't mean that. There's a lake there. I think it knows where it is going.
This is
the machine knows.
This is the lake.
Stop yelling at me.
No, it's
Stop yelling.
There's no road here.
Maybe that's a little extreme, but I mean, I guess not. This woman is blaming her GPS after driving on train tracks. Pennsylvania police say the woman was 100% sober and had no medical conditions affecting her decision making. She was cited for careless driving, but was not hurt. You know, sometimes you got to just trust your instincts and not listen to your GPS.
Common sense.
Yeah.
But it said turn now.
Okay, but don't.
I remember that scene from The Office.
All right.
You can't cite somebody for just being an idiot.
Thank you.
Oh, don't call her an idiot.
Of course. How else would you explain that?
I don't know.
Happens
Maybe
to all of us. We all take wrong turns.
we all have our faults.
Sometimes. Hey, tomorrow marks Giving Tuesday, the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving, to promote charitable giving.
Janice Dean is in Bryant Park for the weather, and she has a very special guest on her show today, or on our show.
Hello. We are in 42nd Street, Bryant Park, and this is Sadie Robertson, everyone. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good, and I'm so glad to be here. It's so awesome.
When did you become ambassador for World Vision?
Just started this year, and I love working with World Vision because they do so many different things in so many different countries. And we actually are here with some animals right now, which is one of the things they give we're going to feed a little cow right now. And the super awesome thing about the cows is that these cows are like miracles with fur, because literally if a cow is healthy, then over 80,000 glasses of milk can be produced from these cows. So if you give a cow, you're literally giving a family so much food, and you're giving them fur, and it's really awesome. And so World Vision just does so much. They cover so much. They give animals, they give water, sponsor kids, and that's something you just don't find with every organization. So I love that.
I love that you're involved. And by the way, if you want to sponsor or give to World Vision, worldvisiongifts.org. Sadie's going to be with us. The animals are going to be with us all morning long. So check back in. We're at Bryant Park Live for World Vision Day, and it's Give Back Tuesday tomorrow. So, Sadie, are you excited?
I'm so excited, and keep in mind, anything that you give for Give Back Tuesday, World Vision, with their corporate sponsor, is going to give double the amount. Fantastic. So this is really important. Don't forget worldvision.org.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you guys later. We're going to feed some animals.
Sadie is so cute. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you very much.
All right, meanwhile, from Ben & Jerry's Pecan Resist Ice Cream to I Miss Barack Obama sweatshirts. Is the left trying to cash in on hatred for
Ben & Jerry's recently launched that new ice cream flavor called Pecan Resist. Joining me now to react is the host of the Michael Knowles Show, Michael Knowles, who wrote the book Reasons to Vote for Democrats with absolutely 0 words on the pages and went to #1. Nice to see you, Michael.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for being with us. What do you make of all of this? You can buy a shower curtain. How much is the shower curtain?
The shower curtain, it says support the 25th Amendment. It's $70.
Okay. The sweater,
There's
the cashmere sweater?
It says I Miss Barack, $380. The Trump economy must be doing pretty well. He's making his opponents rich. They can buy these sweaters. You know, both sides of the aisle produce merchandise, but there's a big difference. The right-wing merchandise generally comes from a place of humor. To use one example, a book called Reasons to Vote for Democrats, and it's blank or Trumpy Bear or whatever. The left-wing merchandise comes from this place of anger, of raw emotion. It just says F Trump. Kathy Griffin has a whole line of products. It says 2 words. One of them starts with an F, the other one says Trump. It comes from anger. It comes from raw emotion. I think what this shows is how powerless the left feels right now. They can't beat Trump at the ballot box. They can't impeach him. They can't beat him with Beto O'Rourke or Andrew Gillum or any of those. So they buy this schlock to express their anger, to show their virtue. But this is fundamentally hypocritical. The left tells us all the time they rail against wealth. Then they spend $380 on an I Miss Barack sweater. They talk about the environment. Global warming is going to kill us all. Then they produce cheap plastic schlock by the metric ton, all of which is going to end up in the Pacific Ocean. And then they tell us Trump has to be civil. And what do? They put 4-letter words that begin with F on all of their merchandise. It's a hilarious irony, and they just keep buying it.
And you said Republicans do this as well. You just said the difference is Republicans have more humor with it.
We have a little bit more humor.
Angry.
That's right. And, you know, by the way, the left is being defrauded. They have the Pecan Resist ice cream from Ben & Jerry's. They say they're going to donate to left-wing causes. They're going to give $100,000 to left-wing causes. Ben & Jerry's sells $500 million worth of ice cream every year. They are defrauding these guys. All that the left is doing is making rich millionaires, capitalists, even richer.
I usually say pecan, but in this case you have to say pecan, right?
You do.
We can resist.
They're even messing up the pronunciation of pecan.
Thank you so much, Michael, for being with us.
Good to see you.
All right, remember when Democrats said the caravan wasn't a threat?
An issue that was inflated for political purposes.
Just flat out lying about the national security threat associated with the caravan.
Okay, well, guess who they're trying to blame now? Plus, it could be the biggest online shopping day ever. We have got the top 5 Cyber Monday deals for you right now, like 50% off.